Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you for coming along. This is Wellbeing Wednesdays with Nurse Rachel Devereux. I'm joined today by Tracy Ripley. Tracy actually was present at the home delivery of my twins. So I'm really, really excited to have her here today. Um, just to let you know what we're doing, we have a weekly session with guest speakers on one of 4 topics. So the topics tend to run in a rolling programme of health and wellbeing, parenting, pets and hobbies, and business. And they'll be either at 12:30 or 8:30. And we are also joined by my almost 11-month-old son. My other one is with his daddy. Just the ground rules. If you enjoy this this recording, then please share it, show your friends it, get it over social media, let people know about Tracy because she is absolutely fantastic. I already refer everyone that's pregnant to her, everyone that's postpartum to her, but if you enjoy it, then please tell your friends about this video, tell them about Tracy, and you could just send her a message and say, I really liked it, because I know that as self-employed business owners, when we get that acknowledgement of someone enjoying the a thing that we've done, it makes us so happy that we've done it. So I have a Ko-fi for my parent sanctuary. So if you wanted to give anything to me, then please use the parent sanctuary Ko-fi account as well. Everything is on the screen there. I'm just going to move that so you can see it. I am Nurse Rachel. So I am a mum of 4. I am a nurse. I'm a transformational coach. I've trained with my Mental Health Rocks to be a facilitator for primary and high school. I'm a sling librarian with slinglibrary.com. I help people transform their homes to be chemical free. And I am now the founder of Parent Sanctuary and Nature Walks for Wellbeing. And we are just working on getting a crying, colic and allergy clinic together where we can give peer support to people who are really struggling with their babies in those few weeks postpartum, even into sort of the first couple of years where baby's got maybe eczema or just the journey I've been on, just using that to be beneficial to others as well. That one of the things that I do like to do is remind people to breathe. I have been on a nice big walk today. I feel so refreshed and so relaxed and actually really, really tired. But I want to remind you on a regular basis to breathe. Most people breathe with their shoulders up near their ears, and we need to remember to take this moment to bring our shoulders down, get our posture better, and breathe. So when I talk about breathing, I want you to breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly. Loads of people can tell you that you will benefit by breathing in for 6 or breathing out for 7, or they'll have rules and numbers and shapes and colors around it, even if it's like a star shape or anything like that, or square breathing. I find that confuses me. It gets my mind muddled. I'm focusing on which side of the square I'm supposed to be on. Did I miss a side? Have I counted too fast? So slowly works for me. You'll find the way that works for you, but for me it's definitely just breathe in slowly and breathe out slowly. So what this does is helps you to change your fight or flight mechanism. It helps you to recognize what's really going on in this moment, and how do I want to react to it. So we can switch our nervous system to be relaxed and calm. And I think that's what we all need, especially if we're about to give a really big shout. So this helps me with the kids, it helps me with my husband, and it helps me in phone calls to the utility companies, remembering to just take a deep breath before I continue with what I was going to do. So we're moving on to this week's speaker. I'm just going to stop sharing here so that we remember to give Tracy the spotlight that she deserves. So Tracy, we've got quite a history of quite an exciting history too. If you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Yes, we do have a history, and I do appreciate you asking me to speak at this meeting tonight. And it's great that it's going to go out to those that need it, especially in these days with numerous lockdowns and restrictions in place. So it's a good message to put across. It would probably be of benefit if I introduce myself, and my name's Tracy Ripley. I am a holistic therapist of 29 years this year, and when I was sort of what you might call middle-aged, I had a moment and decided that I'd go and be a midwife. I'd always been sort of had a leaning towards pregnant women. And I moved on from there into health visiting, and then I did a massive turnaround and wanted to sort of encapsulate all my training and create a business, which I did, which sort of looked at holistic therapies, pregnancy and birth. And as part of that, I went training in London with the wonderful Michelle O'Donnell, who's a childbirth specialist and obstetrician. And he sort of lit me up really with his talk about oxytocin and how it impacts on our human relationships, in particular birth. And I must admit, it sort of captivated me and I wanted to learn more and more. So I just read and researched more. I was lucky enough to be able to write about it for AIMS, which is Association for Improvement to Maternity Services, and sort of collate all this information and hopefully put it across in a very readable way to those that take an interest in sort of babies, birth, labour, and bonding with those babies. And in fact, oxytocin's got many uses in wellbeing, which I'll talk about later. So thank you, Rachel. And yeah, ask away, just any questions really to get us started on this conversation.
So I think I don't know, do we start at the beginning in like making babies, or do we start in giving birth to babies? Because oxytocin plays a key role in pretty much everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's often sort of termed as the love hormone or a cuddle hormone, but actually oxytocin's got many uses within the body, and it's found all over the body. So it's not just in terms of being present in the uterus. It's not just about childbirth contractions. It's found in all the circulatory system and actually shares the same stable as vasopressin, which is a hormone that controls your blood pressure. And oxytocin actually works with something called nitric oxide to expand or swell the arteries around your circulatory system. But what they found is that the components of nitric oxide and some of our neuropeptides also have a resonance or a vibration and frequency. And Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's a neuroscientist, has worked on this premise that we all possess a frequency as human beings. And they actually found that oxytocin can be picked up vibrationally by other people. So it's got many levels of presence, I suppose, in the human body, but also can be picked up by others close to us or in close proximity. Just as an add-on to that, Joe Dispenza also has been working on Schumann's resonance, which means that our vibes, so to speak, or our frequencies, are also interconnected with the Earth's frequency, which is usually pretty stable. But in times of lockdown or world war, the frequency actually goes up. And so it's got a magnificent sort of interconnectedness for us all. And oxytocin frames our views on relationships as well, either in the positive or in the negative. And so it helps bond, or is the glue that keeps couples together. And certainly it's been found in the research that when a couple are under threat of splitting up, their oxytocin levels actually peak. And it's thought that it's a way of keeping couples attached to each other, which I only recently became aware of. But it peaks at the meeting of a couple, and if that relationship is under threat also. So it works in many mysterious ways, and certainly has got implications not just in birth and labour, but more widely than that. So when I talked previously about oxytocin and its vibe, if you will, certainly in other cultures than in our own, but grandparents that are specifically near a newly birthed couple, we think through pheromones pick up oxytocin, and it actually improves the well-being of older people. So they're looking into the use of oxytocin in gerontology, or medicine for older people, as it's been known to regenerate collagen and muscular tissue, which is amazing for people as they get older.
Wow,
So,
that's really sort of special, because I think that my mum's worked in developing countries, and she's worked a lot with newly postpartum parents.
mm,
As the culture shift to her seeing a grandparent breastfeed a baby because mum's not available to breastfeed that baby, it's sort of really eye-opening that practices like that happen when we live in the UK, where the informal sharing of milk is really taboo, and yet where my mum was living, the grandparent suckling the infant is normal.
mm.
So yeah, it's just what that must do for that family. Must be amazing.
Yeah, and you can see why then, if that's happening, that those family bonds are really cohesive, and how everybody benefits really from oxytocin at the birth, not just the mother and the baby, but it's almost like dropping a pebble into a pond and the ripples of it go outwards. So it's certainly what you might call a love hormone in that respect. And just to sort of highlight actually that oxytocin is a a hormone, but it's also a chemical messenger as well. It's got dual purposes as well as dual functions. And I guess the thing to remember with oxytocin is that it's very key in most human relationships, in particular babies and mothers, but and fathers as well, of course. But that it's sort of got this fairy tale quality about it, but actually oxytocin does possess a dark side, and it can cement very good positive memories, but it can also cement and produce behaviors along with other chemicals and hormones of negative experiences. And it's actually pretty exclusive, because oxytocin plays a role in who we accept into our social circles, who we trust, who we don't. So it can be a little bit of a kind of a judgmental type moral molecule. And men do by nature possess slightly less oxytocin than women. Having said that, if testosterone levels peak, i.e., if there's been a fight or hunting or something that requires male aggression, once the testosterone's gone, men experience quite a flood of oxytocin, particularly when they return into a group of people that they are associated with or that they've got family ties to. So it makes it so that men can be as aggressive and as loving at the same time. So it does play this sort of balance with other hormonal sort of functions in the body. So it's certainly a fascinating a molecule, and the more that you read into it, the more mysterious it gets. But certainly research into oxytocin and its importance really has quadrupled in the last decade. So it's certainly got massive implications for research. And it seems to be that the science is catching up with its role in birth. And I think this is where sort of we come into oxytocin in its best known form, and how it sort of assists birth and the sort of parenting, nurturing process. And I guess, sadly, the medical model of birth doesn't always support the production of oxytocin.
I think societal belief systems around birth as well, that sets people up for fearing childbirth before they've even got pregnant even.
Yeah,
So like the fear of childbirth is so real in people, and it from someone who has birthed naturally 3 times and been very confident in my body's abilities.
mm,
I know that there are births that are not as calm and serene as mine have been. I know that that's absolutely the case, but we're fed over and over again stories of horrific childbirth. Every film we watch is people laid on beds in a suboptimal position. Every soap opera we watch, we have people screaming in pain. So we're given this message that birth is a terrifying, painful experience again and again and again and again,
yeah,
from people who have actually had not pleasant birth experiences, and
right,
from people who are writing drama to make it more exciting.
right. Yeah, yeah. So it's almost ingrained from childhood that people have got expectations about birth, and because it's almost done in a way in usually in hospital. That's where most births are. Of course, it wasn't always this way, and previously to the Peel report in 1971, a lot of women birthed at home. most women birthed at home, and it was the smaller minority that went into hospital, and then it changed around to become where the majority of women birth at home. Sorry, in hospital. Um, but having said that, I'm really pleased to say that during COVID, the birth rate, particularly in our area, has actually gone up. The home birth rate from under 1% to now 3%, which is fantastic news.
That's just brilliant.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been a big change in the setup as well, and that was coming pre-COVID.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
This hasn't been the home birth team hasn't been set up as a result of COVID. That was already on the cards
Yes.
before COVID struck, and they started around the time of like lockdown. It was like lockdown. Hi, we're the new home birth team.
Yeah.
It's all ready to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, the team with Huddersfield and Halifax, and how the individuals who supported me were absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I have to say that all the individuals involved in getting me a safe, autonomous birth, they were all fantastic. And the people who visited me postpartum as well, just as we were like fearing this virus that's changed the way that we work, changed the way that we live, changed the way that we eat, everything. Yeah, they're so professional.
And that's got to be a positive. It's got to be a positive for those that choose to birth at home. Having said that, I think all places of birth have recognised that, trying to make hospitals appear more homely, having the sort of ability to change a room round in the hospital to make it more comfortable, having lower lights, all helps a woman to create as much feelings of safety as possible. And again, that is a key thing in allowing oxytocin to sort of flourish, because oxytocin can be quite a shy neuropeptide. And if adrenaline or cortisol raises in the bloodstream, it does impact on oxytocin almost immediately. So women who, and the partners actually, that are attending hospital, perhaps thinking that she's going into labour, the sort of foreign smells and sounds and literally being in an unfamiliar place, slightly nervous, which is normal, can be enough to stop contractions. And that's quite a common phenomena in women, and often sent home then. And that leads to feelings of frustration, and they don't actually want to go home because they are afraid of, having the baby at home, perhaps. And so that's evident that perhaps making a woman feel slightly unbalanced or unsafe can actually throw off a labour. And it's been well documented that women that have been in quite established labour, birthing at home, when the children come home from school, have actually stopped labour, got the kids the tea, got them off to bed, and labour's actually resumed. And so in that respect, we're no different to any other mammal that will give birth once they feel that they're safe. Having said that, you do get past the tipping point, and there is a point where you cannot stop. And I think that's where Michelle O'Donnell speaks about the fetal ejection sort of phenomena, where if the baby needs to be born very, very quickly to keep them both safe, i.e. the mum and the baby, the baby's born very, very quickly. And so it's all about the propagation of the species, and oxytocin as sort of kept us going as a race for millennia, and it's as old as mammals themselves. Reptilians don't have oxytocin, or if they do, it's very, very minuscule amounts. They have more vasopressin, which also acts as an aggressive chemical, as well as a regulator of your blood pressure. Vasopressin actually is an aggressive chemical for those that you've got familial ties with, almost like a protection mechanism. And we kind of have had that sort of socialized out of us, really. But you can't imagine going up to a gorilla that probably weighs 800 pounds, mother, and taking a baby from her because she'd probably tear to pieces. But what do we do as health professionals, perhaps, is take babies from the mothers. Again, a recognition has come around about that, about not separating mothers and babies, trying to keep them together at all times if possible. So when I had my children, babies were taken, dressed, no skin to skin, and put into a nursery, which is totally against really the laws of nature. And so it's important really that, I believe it's important that mums sort of have a good awareness about their own body's alchemy and how that will help them in their labour, if they have a good awareness about how the body's working, how marvellous it is that it adapts very, very well, if allowed to do so. And I think that's the key. It's about respecting the physiology of birth and the role that oxytocin plays in that. And not just alone, it's not a lone wolf. It works together with lots and lots of other hormonal chain reactions to produce a mother and baby dyad, I guess. And so right from sort of early pregnancy, if mums were sort of given information about this role of oxytocin and how they can help it along, even in the face of adversity. So if they were admitted to hospital and say that they were things didn't go as planned, which can happen. Childbirth is very sort of dynamic and fluid, it changes. Then at least things that they can do to help themselves. So knowing about the course of labour and taking things from home that smell familiar to them. Our smell, and particularly babies, is a key sensory organ in mammals, and particularly in birth. Babies have got an extraordinary sense of smell, and the major sort of sensory organ is the mouth at birth and the sense of smell. And that, of course, helps with breastfeeding, bonding. Skin to skin, of course, is a really essential thing to do. But for the mum, she can plan ahead for these things and help by taking familiar things with her, maybe a pillow or a pillow slip that smells familiar to her.
I noticed with the birth of my first, when the midwife walked in to the room, I was very calm, I was very relaxed, I was very much in the zone, and she came in. It was almost like I was the first person she'd met today. She was just sort of bounced into the room with a big smile on her face and went, "Hi," and I was just like, "She smells."
So could you smell her perfume?
Yeah, from like 8 foot away.
Yeah.
And I was like, "She smells." My husband was like, "What are you on about?" I was like, "She smells." And then she walked out of the room. She said she'd forgotten something, and she came back in a lot quieter, a lot more on the same level as me. I think there was absolutely nothing wrong with what she did. She was cheerful, she was beautiful, she was very attentive to me, but in like 3 words, I hated her. And then when she came back in again, it was fine.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really good example of how although you may be in labour and almost in the zone, how much you're actually in tune with your environment. And that environment is, again, another key principle of essentially making a woman feel safe. So you can imagine that bright lights, unfamiliar equipment, resus equipment particularly. Um, I remember distinctly having we used to call it a stalk walk, or just a visit to the hospital, just to look at it. And the sense of nervousness that I got actually looking at the hospital bed and the scales and the resus equipment and how cold and clinical it looked, give me the heebie-jeebies. Um, so yeah, women are a lot more in tune on a subliminal level than what they actually think they are. And always are when the babies are born and afterwards, and very intuitive. So some women maybe antenatally think, well, what if I sleep over or I sleep through the baby crying, and it doesn't happen because we change as a result of our hormones post birth. Our circadian rhythms alter to be in synchronicity with our baby's circadian rhythms and REM sleep. So you'll find often that you feel more wakeful at night. The full bladder doesn't help, but that's almost like a side issue. The fact is that you are entering into lighter sleep coming up to the baby's birth and afterwards. So it's all preparation for that baby's survival, essentially. Um, and I think if people were a little bit more aware of this and how it impacts on a sort of breastfeeding practices as well, and realize that actually breastfeeding is more of a gradual process, almost a dance that you and the baby have together. Oxytocin plays a key role in that. A key role actually in all the smooth muscle in the body, of which your breasts composite, composite of that, and that obviously if women have had difficulties or challenges in childbirth and they've been medicated, then that can impact on the birth and breastfeeding. But it's not to say that it's the end of a breastfeeding story if you've had any intervention in birth. And I tend to think that breastfeeding sort of a slow burner in terms of feeling comfortable with it and getting it right. It's something that you and your baby learn together. And certainly what can help with that is what we talked about before, which is skin-to-skin contact, which has got huge benefits for both mums and babies on lots of levels. And yeah, just I guess really the expectations are very high that women will just know what to do straight away. Some women take to it more easily than others, but women have got a lot of pressure on themselves.
It's natural, like learning how to walk.
Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, it's not always easy. It turns it out to be easy in the majority of cases that make it through those first 12 weeks of what can be utter hell. Like, I've been blessed with good supply, but we've still found ourselves in the hospital with a baby who wasn't putting weight on. We've still found ourselves cup feeding and having to feed to a schedule and having that anxiety of a baby putting weight on. And yeah, the sheer bloody mindedness of being able to push through that safely. And I think that's really important to say, safely, because it's not just being sheer bloody mindness. You need to use medicine where medicine's needed, and if you need to use formula to get through the first couple of weeks as a medicine while you're trying to establish breastfeeding, or if you choose to end your breastfeeding journey and use formula for your own mental health, then that's absolutely fine. We have a medicine and it's called formula milk, but oh gosh, those first weeks trying to breastfeed, I don't think anyone had ever told me the difficulties I might face.
Yeah.
It's the more people I speak to, the more people I find out had been denied a proper oral assessment for tongue tie. They'd been told that the baby's latch looked fine. Well, the mum's nipple's bleeding. The latch wasn't fine. It's so hard to know that the health professional that you're speaking to, when you're a new mum, when you're a lay person, when you know you've not been around mums who have struggled and overcome, you think that the person that you're speaking to, the GP, the health visitor, the midwife, you think that they know all about breastfeeding or sling wearing or colic or reflux or all these things that that make babies unsettled and not do what you thought they were going to do, make you think your baby's broken. Like, my baby's broken, can I send it back? You think that they're able to help you, and not all can. It's not been part of their training. It's then they've not done the specialist course around tongue tie assessment. They've not done the specialist breastfeeding course. They've not done the specialist allergy information, and we don't know that, do we?
No, and I guess the thing is that with all the best training in the world, if you haven't had grassroots hands-on experience regularly in, say, tongue tie, it can be fairly tricky to ascertain, particularly if it's posterior tongue tie. And I think it's a case of trying different tactics, and eventually I believe that if you stick with your breastfeeding, that you will find somebody that can help you eventually. I have to say as well, I do come across a lot of mums that feel just because they've offered a bottle or a cup, that it's the end of the breastfeeding journey, or more bottles, if they've sort of felt that they need to give up. It's not the end. It doesn't have to be the end. So it can be brought back again. And equally, you were absolutely right. The mantra "fed is best," I think, is a good maxim to go by, especially for people that feel they've put themselves under a lot of pressure to breastfeed. But emotionally, if they're suffering, you've got to weigh up the risks of suffering emotionally and potentially mentally. Because equally, bonding and nutrition can be gained with formula feeding as well. We do know that breastfeeding's got fantastic benefits for both babies and mums. I think it's...
We could also say that organic food is best to eat, but if you can't afford to buy the organic food, you don't not eat.
Exactly.
Exactly. It might not be the best, but if you're low on spoons, a freezer tea is absolutely fine.
Right.
Yeah, we don't all want to be living on turkey twizzlers and frozen chips, but once in a while we can go down that road. Or we don't have to always eat organic fruit and veg. If we can't afford it, we can eat fruit and veg. It's, you know, there are options available to us.
Yeah, yeah. And we're lucky in that way. We're fortunate in that way. Of course, in other cultures, things are slightly different, but in this, in sort of in the UK in particular, it would seem that statistically, women that are breastfeeding seem to stop largely around about 6 to 8 weeks. And it's usually through lack of support to continue. But you have got autonomy over your body, and if it's something that it just isn't for you, then that's absolutely fine. And nobody should be put under pressure to do anything that they don't want to do. I think that's a good sort of message to go forward, is that you must do what is best for you and your baby at the time.
I had a misconception. Like, there's so many misconceptions that I had about babies before I was a parent. And I never really researched how long I might breastfeed for. I never looked into that. And I'd got a number in my head of when babies stopped having breast milk. And I don't know where that had come from, but I always knew that I'd be breastfeeding. That was never anything that was questionable in my like hypothetical future. I would breastfeed my babies. But I'd got this 6 months mark. I'd breastfeed, and I didn't know what this 6 months mark, where it had come from or what. And I found myself looking down at my 6-month-old and thinking, there is no difference between like yesterday and today. And then I found myself saying the same thing about a 1-year-old. There's no difference between yesterday when you were less than a year and now you're over a year. You still need it, and it helps me get you to sleep. I'm all for sleep.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You've got to live your life. You're in your life every day and night. And so you've got to do what's best for you. Whatever that best is, you've got to do what's best for you. Whatever gets you through.
We ended up feeding for 4.5 years, for 3 years, and now tandem feeding the twins. So yeah, breastfeeding is possible, and it is a lot easier than when I was trying to pump. And you were there with the phone calls of, I don't want to do bottles of pumping, I can't wash them quick enough.
Yeah, I know. It isn't without its challenges, let's say. It isn't without its challenges. And I guess that's sort of babyhood, looking after babies, children. I guess that's a theme that sort of resonates throughout, because all babies are individual, and I've got unique relationships with the mums and dads. And so it's a constant, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Readjustment for each child over different milestones that they approach.
I use the phrase that baby's learning, like baby's growing every day, and I'm learning how to parent every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that it is so fluid, it
Yeah.
is so changeable, and just as you think that you've got their current phase or their current frustration, just as you think you've about managed it, they move on to something else. And you're like, I don't know how to deal with that part of parenting now.
Yeah. And when you think about, you're a mother of 4, you've got to make small, regular adjustments times 4 every day, every hour of every day. So, I mean, I did do a little blog about this, and I just, really recognize that mum's skills, the skill of being a parent, are so under a bushel, just totally sort of overlooked in our society. And actually, the skill sets that you need and the hours that you put in are so undervalued by society at large, I believe.
At the moment, it's like homeschooling the 6-year-old. Like, can we count up by fives? Come on, if he focuses, we can do all his schoolwork in half an hour. But when he's not wanting to do it, it's like pulling teeth.
Yeah,
And meanwhile, his sister is playing on a tablet. And it's
yeah,
like, that's the kind of parent I've gone to. She's playing on a tablet, brilliant. But it's what's working, and I've got to
yeah,
accept that we've got the tools and the technology, that she's entertained, and she's actually doing some learning without knowing she's learning, as well. So I'm like, she's quite happy playing on a tablet, and she's learning loads of stuff through it. So I'm cuddling 2 babies, and I'm homeschooling. I think I'm at my limit with that.
and I really do take my hat off to the mums going through what they're going through at the moment, because they've just got so many pressures put on them, and it's really challenging and testing time. And I believe more so now than ever that we should really sort of celebrate mums and what they do
Yeah,
in whatever way they can.
it's been uh, so isolating, so
Mm,
lonely,
yeah,
so hard. We've had um, visits from grandparents to look through the window at the babies.
yeah,
We've had um, I, including health professionals, less than 10 people have held my twins,
mm,
and they're nearly a year old. That's unheard of.
yeah,
Like, twin mums need help.
yeah. I know.
There isn't enough hands, and yet the people who've had contact, like physical contact with them, is so low, and it has been on absolute necessity that I've had to go, please. Like,
Yeah.
this feels weird, I shouldn't be doing this, but right now I need this.
Mm, mm,
um so yeah, it's been a very, very crazy time to have a baby and to be on your own, which is why I've been wanting to create something amazing for parents for a long time. And we've started doing the parent walks and the nature walks, and then that's not allowed now. And like, we're one of the most COVID secure baby activities in the area because we're outside,
yeah,
and we've had to stop, which is understandable. Um, and now we're doing the virtual ones, which is working actually. Which is it's strange. We're doing like a crafting activity and a sing along, and then encouraging the parents to go for walks um outside of our session, so that they can find things in nature and spot things in nature as a family, and then
hmm,
come back and report as a community. So we've got that shared interest.
yeah,
It's just, it would be so much nicer to be in person.
yeah. I know. And I think it's the very things that you were talking about grandparents looking through windows, babies not being held by families, a sense of a lost babyhood, if you like, during this lockdown. And those are the things that don't get on the news. These stories that women are living every day, these experiences that women every day don't make the headlines. It's just everyday lived experiences, and women are grieving for the loss of their babyhood. So, for example, for women that probably won't have another baby again, this was a last chance. Mums have said that they miss going shopping for baby clothes, meeting the friends in the park, little things that mean a lot. And there's a sense of grief, I think, universally for mums at this point. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of influx when the baby groups do get back up and running. I'm sure they'll be absolutely inundated with mums wishing to socialize, have meaningful social interactions, which produces oxytocin.
There's a big misconception that it's about meeting people and having coffee and cake, and that's what your maternity leave's for. There is such a physical and mental change to our bodies postpartum, and a lot of the groups are aimed at like babies' development, but it it's so much more for a parent than baby's development. It's the four walls, they build up around you so high, and you might be in a 10 square meter room, but it feels like 1 square meter. It's crushing being stuck inside with a baby that's crying.
Yeah.
It's absolutely awful, and that's what we've had to endure for a year nearly. And yeah, we get that rush of oxytocin. We get our escape. Even going to a play gym, my child can run around safely while I just drink my drink. Play gyms can be absolutely amazing places, and they can be really, really noisy and loud, and like the last place you want to go to. But actually, to sit somewhere in good company, or even on your own, whilst your child bounces off the walls safely.
Yeah. Safely. Yeah, that's
Without
right.
breaking something.
Yeah. And mums seek the attention. Mums seek the company of other mums. It's a natural thing to want to do. Um, it's almost like a lost community that's been produced through this weird set of circumstances. And so roll on the spring and let's hope things change for the better, and that communities can be communities again, and that babies can be held, and that mothers can meet other mothers and be as it should be. And particularly for groups like yours that are encouraging sort of being outdoors as well, which is another bonus in terms of the exercise and the endorphins that are produced, and serotonin levels all work together to make happier bunnies of us. So yeah. So I certainly feel the pulse of this every day.
So I am. Oh, I've just gone into the wrong place. There we go. You're still there. Like, I was just checking if there was anything else on my slides, because we're coming up to the hour mark now.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find time to watch things that are an hour long, but I'm hoping that people have done this whilst they've been washing up, or has had us on speaker whilst they've been tidying bedrooms and putting clothes away, because that's how I do most of my podcast listening, or my washing or my watching YouTubes. So hopefully people have been using this time, or just sat feeding a baby, basking in lovely oxytocin. And yeah, because even if you're not breastfeeding, you still get that rush of oxytocin by cuddling your babies.
You do. And the thing is, it's not just like the feelings of love, but it actually matters in terms of laying a blueprint down for your future, for the child's future emotional well-being, dealing with novel and stressful situations, and indeed their future mental health. So it's not just in the here and now, it's part of your baby's future. And from that perspective, it needs to be respected and talked about, and awareness sort of being made more and more for mums about the importance of it.
Mm. I can, yeah, that's probably a whole extra topic on like how cuddling your baby and what using slings increases oxytocin, and we know it makes the babies cry 50% less of the time. I just wish there was more research into actual slings and how that helps both mother and both parent, caregiver, and child.
Yeah.
Because for me, I can't imagine parenting without a sling. I can't imagine keeping on top of the house without a sling. I mean, I'm not even doing that at the moment, to be fair.
Yeah.
We're surviving, and we're clean enough, and we've got clean enough clothes, so we're doing all right.
And that's all you need to be. Just clean enough.
Yeah,
It's all you need to be.
But yeah, my babies don't like sleeping unless they're touching an adult, and I've had to find a way to make that work. Otherwise, that's a lot of time spent sat on the sofa.
Yeah, and again with the sleeping, as long as you put some, and I suppose this is my health visitor head on now, but I suppose co-sleeping is widely done in most cultures except our own. And the thing is just about planning for it and making it safe for your baby. And in terms of sleeping with the parent, like any other mammal, they need to feel safe when they are most vulnerable, which is when they're asleep. And of course, they're going to want to be near the caregiver, parent, mum, dad. And
I'm
that
I'm
makes sense.
absolutely itching to do the study day course with the Durham Sleep Institute, basis online. I really, really want to do that study day, and 4 times I have gone to apply for it, and 4 times they have been sold out. Every time I've got my card details in and it's gone, the course is full. But why let me get so far?
That's dashing your hopes on purpose.
Yeah, it's been like an hour from receiving the email to me logging on, and I've not been able to get tickets. I think that they might be as exclusive as Glastonbury tickets.
Yeah.
But I will ensure that the safe bed sharing guidance is in the YouTube link, because it is so important to know how to do things safely, for a start, and then what you do with your own child is your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because most people are wanting to be safe, autonomous parents that love their children and look after them extremely well. But if you know the evidence and the reasons and how to do things safely, then you can make your own judgments on what you are comfortable with and not comfortable with.
Yeah, and what better feeling than falling asleep with a loved one? I mean, it's one of those sorts of best things about being human.
Oh, right. I will end the recording. If anyone wants to get in touch with Tracy, please contact her via Elemental Birth and Therapies. She is a great source of knowledge. I think that has come across really clearly tonight, how much she knows about her subject. She's also incredibly kind and compassionate, and she's pretty good at catching babies. And if you want to hear more from her, then please put things in the comments, because we can talk all night long about so many different subjects, including wait for why and all the rest of it.
There's so much, so much. Thank you for having me on tonight, Rachel. It's been great to talk.
Thank you.